Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today I'm going to do the second work on my Tamarix juniper. I began the work on this tree in October of last year, and today I'm going to be giving it its second pruning. When I last worked on the tree, I had picked this as the front of the tree, but this could easily be the front over here too. Both have nice sweeping trunk lines, so I could either pick this trunk line as the focus of the tree or this sweeping tree that goes to the left-hand side. The last meeting of the Toronto Bonsai Society had Jonas as a guest, and Jonas showed us some photos of Sierra junipers up in the mountains, and there were some fantastic shapes, some wind-blown shapes. Jonas has a blog, so I'll put a link to his blog in the description below, and you can check out these fantastic juniper pictures. They'll really inspire you. I'm still going to pick this as the front of the tree. I think if I picked the opposite side, it's a little more simple and less complicated. It kind of just shows that sweeping branch, and this one's to the back. If I have this as the front, I still have that nice sweeping branch off here, and I have a more interesting branch out front. The only problem with this branch is it points off to the right-hand side, and it should be kind of wind-blown to the left-hand side. So I can fix that with pruning, you know, encouraging it to grow out this direction and pruning off the growth on this side. So it'll kind of give it that windswept look. When I first styled this tree, I didn't want to take too much foliage off the top all at once, or you can get this scale-like foliage, could revert back to juvenile foliage. So instead of the nice scale-like foliage, you get this spiky juvenile foliage on it, which isn't as desirable. It eventually will revert back to the mature adult foliage if you kind of treat the tree well and don't prune it as much. I also didn't do a full repot on the tree. I just kind of raked out the roots, fit it in a smaller container. So that will be coming next spring. I'll do a full repot on it, sorting out all my roots and getting it looking really good. All right, I'm going to start the pruning of the tree now, and I'm going to start with some of the longer shoots, pruning those back to get it more compact. So this is the most, this sticks out the most as being too long, so I'm going to prune that back first. So I want to keep lots of foliage on this branch. So there's a good shoot coming out the side here, so I can prune just above that. So here I go. Like that. These will probably grow from cuttings. I've never tried with a juniper, but it probably would. So there's the front of the tree now. You can see it's getting more compact. The next feature of the tree that stands out to me is this trunk line here. It kind of sweeps off this direction, and the windswept look of the tree is the other direction. So I've got to kind of prune it so it redirects the branch to grow in the windswept direction. So you can see it divides here. I have a windswept one to this side, and I could prune off this side of the trunk. It's quite a big cut. I think that's too aggressive. I'm just going to prune off the upper part of it, keeping this part, and then I can always like have it start off this direction and then be windswept this way. So kind of like curving. That always looks good. So I think I'll do that. I think I'm going to prune it off to here. So here I go. Like that. Now on top of that branch, I've got two vertical shoots. I don't want those, so I'm going to prune them off. I don't want this tree getting too high. I want to keep it compact, close to the trunk line. And I think there's a branch here that I think I've got to remove, so I'm taking it all right off. like that. There's a shoot up here that's too high. I think I've got to reduce it right back to here. Here I go. Taking that off. Fairly aggressive cut there. There's another. I'm going to trim this branch back. It's getting a little tall. That and this one too. And that's about all I want to take off on this branch. So I'm leaving, you know, enough foliage to keep the branch healthy and keep it growing. So now I've got another branch that's going the opposite direction of the wind. So I've got to prune it back short and develop it, you know, maybe to grow on the underside of this branch. Let me see how that would look. No. I think it's just a case of keeping this one short. I've got some new foliage here that I could keep very tight to the trunk, and that would look good on the wind side of the juniper. So I'm going to prune it off. I don't want to take everything off here, but I will prune it to here. Taking the tip off. I think that's getting better. This trunk line looks less going in this direction and a little more windswept to me. And it's something that'll develop over the next few years. So the next obvious branch that isn't going in the direction of the wind, which is this way, is this branch here. It's kind of sticking out this direction, which is fine, but I've got to keep it reduced. I don't want it looking vigorous. If I have any branches or greenery on this side of the tree, I want it very close to the trunk line, so it looks like it's beaten back by nature, and then it's trying to regrow on this side, and then it gets beaten back again, and it always stays small and compact. So I've got to take this long branch back. And I think somewhere in here, it's a big, big cut. A big cut. And it's still too long out here, so I was wondering about ginning it, but it's still too long. I want, if I have any deadwood, it'll be way back here, and then I'll develop these smaller branches at the base closer to the trunk. So I'm okay just pruning it off. Here I go. Done. Quite a big branch pruning off there. And then there's a vertical one coming up here. I've got to reduce that back like that. So there's some out the back here that are quite vigorous, and they're nice. They kind of contribute to that tight foliage to the trunk here. They're just getting a little vigorous, so I'm going to prune them back to here, and this one back to here, and I think this one back to here, and that gets that quite compact. Yeah, that's improving the styling. It looks more windblown. It's looking quite good. I've got some foliage at the back here that's very tight to the trunk, but it's starting to get a long shoot on it, so I'm going to cut that one back like that. So up here I have this vertical trunk coming up, And it's getting long. I want it to look like, you know, the wind's blowing across here, shearing everything off. So I don't want any shoots getting too high on this tree. So I've got a new shoot here, which is really nice. I can just prune that tip back, making it a little more windswept. And then this one, I don't know. I'm going to prune it back quite far, and I'll chase it back. So I'm going to take it to here, taking the top off. That helps reduce the height of the tree quite a bit. There's a branch growing here that I want more windswept, so I'm going to take it off to here, taking the tip off. Looks good. So I've got most of, you know, this half of the tree cleaned up, but this half needs work still. So let's get this one cleaned up now. So, you know, everything on this side of the tree is kind of in that wind-blown direction, which looks really good. Here's a tall one at the back here. This one is getting too tall, so I'm going to prune it back to here, like that. Again, you know, I'm being fairly conservative on the pruning, always leaving some good green foliage. I can always reduce it back further later on. I don't have to do everything at once on this tree. So there's a shoot at the back here. I can prune the tip off that. Like that. There's another shoot growing up here. You can see it right here. It's getting too tall, so I've got to prune that back. And this one I can go quite far because there's kind of duplicate branches here. So if this one were to die off, I still have this branch. So I'm going to take a chance on that one and prune it back quite far to here, taking the tip off. So you can see that now. Now I've got some this branch kind of sweeps up, and I've got some shoots that are getting quite tall here. I got to prune those back, so I'll take them back to here, taking the tip off. This one back to here, taking the tip off there. This one, I'll take the tip off it, trying to redirect it, going in that windswept direction. There's one in here that I can also prune the tip back, like that. There's one sticking up here. That's got to be reduced back. This one back, way back to here, taking that tip off. So it's looking better. I've still got a ways to go. So out at the tip here, it's starting to get a little long. I can prune it back to here, like that. This one can be reduced back, way back to here. And there's a vertical one here I got to reduce back to here. Another vertical one here I can reduce back. That one back. This tip back. Just kind of getting this, you know, this part of the tree a little flatter looking, so it's not too poofy. There's a branch, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a branch here that doesn't need to be there. It's just cluttering up the design. It's too many branches in that one area. So I think I've got to remove that one totally. That one there. That cleans up this area of the tree, so there's space for all the branches to grow, so it's not so jammed in there and cluttered. I think I'm still too tall on this branch here. I've got a nice branch coming off of it, windswept over this direction. I think I've got to take, you know, this tall part off because it's very straight looking from the base all the way to the tip. If I prune it off here, then I've got a change of direction and taper here. And I think this branch is strong enough that I can do that. But I might leave a bit of green foliage on it just as a backup. So here I go. I'm going to take quite a bit off there. Not much. That looks better. If you look at the front view now, it's much better. Kind of losing my light here. I got to move the tree out a bit. I'm still a little tall here. There's some new shoots here. I can reduce those back. They're just too vigorous and they're sweeping upwards. So I got to take those back. Like that. Smells beautiful, this juniper, when you're pruning it. Just taking some of these tips back. Doing a bit of branch sorting out here. It's very dense in this area, and I've got all these branches coming off of this long branch, and I've got to kind of sort it out a bit. Take this one back a bit here. Always tough decisions on these trees. So there's what it looks like now. I think it's looking much better. It's got that windswept juniper look, like it's growing in the mountains. Yeah. I'm tempted to reduce this one back a bit further. No, I'm not. I'm going to let it grow more and then I can take it back. I've got to be patient. I think I'm getting close to kind of finishing my styling for today, or my trimming. It's certainly got that windswept look. So there's the back, and you can see the back looks really good too, but I think this is just as nice, and you have the interest of this branch coming out the front. I think it's just more three-dimensional from this view versus this view, which is less, you know, it's got this as a back branch and you can see these trunk lines really nicely, but I just don't think it's quite as interesting. Both are good. Both are really good views. So it's quite possible in the future, you know, I'll have deadwood on the tree. You know, it gets, the wind blows this direction and it kind of dries this side of the juniper out and it dies, and then it gets to driftwood and the tree just keeps growing. The living part protected from the wind keeps growing. So yeah, it's possible that, you know, in the future this tree will get deadwood on it, but not for now. I'm just developing the structure. So that'll be something coming up in the far future. Just pruning off. There's a lot of roots that were growing on this side of the tree. I'm just pruning some of those off. Bit of cleanup. So the last thing I can do today is I've got to prune the moss away from the trunk of the tree. It's kind of growing up around the trunk. So I'll do that. I'll get my tweezers and start picking off the moss. So this tree, I call it the $12 juniper because it cost $12. It was just on sale at the nursery center. I didn't have a choice of trees. It was the last one left. So I thought, And I didn't really get a look at it. I just picked it up, thought, let's try styling it. And it turned out quite nice. It was better than I expected. Usually those garden junipers have, you know, a whole bunch of little thin trunks forming the canopy. And this one had kind of a solid trunk on it, which is, it was nice. It was a nice surprise. Usually my nursery finds are the opposite. You get really poor roots and, you know, a tree that's not very good. But I think this one's quite nice and can be developed into something in the future. Something good looking. I certainly think it's worth more than $12 now anyway. So I think, you know, I can see this tree maybe being eventually either a root over rock planting or growing amongst the rocks, just like in those photos of the Sierra junipers, kind of growing out of the rock mountains, or the rocky areas of the mountains. And yeah, I think that would look pretty good. So I got to think up, you know, a pot and a display for this tree eventually. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm getting excited to get this tree, you know, looking like a real mountaintop tree that's all windblown and beaten back by the wind. I think it'll look pretty cool. All right, I'll just get the toothbrush and finish this off. All right, I'm coming in with the toothbrush now and just brushing the moss and lichen away from the roots here. It's another hot day out today. No rain in the forecast now for a long time. Here's a look at how much I took off the tree. And then here's a look at the tree. So I would say I took, you know, maybe half to a third off, somewhere in there. I think I left enough on that the tree will do really, really well. And it looks really good from the top view here. You can see all the branch structure. Yeah, I think it's a good looking tree. I'm going to rotate the tree around so you can see it from all angles now. So here I go. So here's the current front. Coming around to the right-hand side. This tree is a real good, you know, three-dimensional tree. It has lots of depth, lots of branches out front, out back. There's the back view. Side view. Yeah. Very interesting tree, I think. I'll show you an update to my other juniper, Joey's juniper that he gave me. It's over here on the bench. Right here. It's in that tall cascade pot. So it recovered really well. This one got bare rooted and repotted. And it's done very, very well. You can see all the new growth coming on the tree. So again, this one, all these long branches here, you know, most of them can be pruned off and replaced with more compact growth. I'll keep some of them, maybe some of the cascading ones long, but yeah, lots of backbiting on the tree, which is really good to see. Yeah, so that'll be a nice looking juniper someday too. It's been a really hot day today, hot and humid. So I think, you know, the trees are in the shade now. I think they'll like this, you know, this nighttime where it cools down. I've watered them lots today, so they're all looking good. But yeah, I think they'll appreciate the shade tonight. We're getting close to the day where I'm going to cut the yuccas off. I said around my birthday, and that's coming up, so they'll be getting the big chop. I think that'll be an exciting day, and hopefully they all recover really nicely. I'll be sealing the cuts with some glue, white glue. That worked last time. Beside my juniper here, I have my purple smoke bush that I really pruned hard this spring. And you can see the top's doing quite well. I mean, it's not thriving yet, but it's growing. It's alive. So I think it'll do fine. I'll baby it through the next winter in the glass greenhouse. The Royal Oaks, my original ones that I planted, are doing really, really well. They look great. Beautiful leaf shape, beautiful leaf size on them. Just fantastic trees for bonsai. My poly house is looking a lot more empty these days. I moved a lot of the hardy trees out of the poly house and onto the benches. So I still have a ways to go. There's still a few trees I want to get out of here. But they're doing well. I can't bring the Royal Oaks out here yet because they still have an acorn attached to them down below the soil, and the squirrels will dig them up. I've had that once before. I lost a whole tray of Royal Oaks, like one like the one over here. So they were about this size, and I thought, okay, it's time to put them outside. And you can see the acorn still attached to them. So what happened is the squirrels came at night, or dusk, or whenever, and they dug up every tree and took them away. I never saw the seedlings. They must have carried them away in their mouth or something, but yeah, they still have those acorns attached, and the squirrels will still get to them. So you gotta kind of wait longer, probably keep them in a protected area for the first season. I just noticed there's a damsel fly on the one leaf there. I don't know if you can see it. Very cool. Over here I have a couple of my succulents. I have my Portulacaria afroforest over here and my crown of thorns, and you can see the crown of thorns is getting the first flowers on it. So there's a couple of pink flowers coming. The whole canopy will be covered in flowers eventually this summer. But it's recovered from its pruning and growing really nicely. So is the Portulacaria afros. They're getting quite a good canopy on them now. Considering they were extremely hard pruned, they're recovering nicely. I finished the second styling on my $12 juniper, and I think it's getting better with every styling. That's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.